They say no good marriage starts with, "Honey, I found something on your phone." Turns out, that's a solid bit of wisdom. Not that I'd ever say it out loud, my therapist would call that avoidance. But, hey, I'd been married to Sarah for 5 years, and up until last night, I thought we were the poster children for domestic bliss. Then came the text. It all started when Sarah left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to shower. Totally innocent, right? I wasn't snooping, I was making coffee, minding my own business, and debating whether to add a little cinnamon like she liked it. But then, her phone lit up with a soft ding. Normally, I'd ignore it. But this time, my eyes caught a glimpse of the message on the screen. "Miss you. When can I see you again?" From an unknown number. For a second, I thought, wow, her friend group really needs to workshop their phrasing. But then the implication hit me like a truck, and suddenly, cinnamon wasn't the only spice I was dealing with. The phone sat there like a ticking time bomb. I knew I shouldn't pick it up. I knew it was wrong. But curiosity isn't just a cat killer, it's a marriage destroyer. My hand hovered over it, my heart pounding. Sarah's cheerful humming floated down the hall, oblivious to the storm brewing in the kitchen. With one last glance toward the bathroom door, I tapped the screen. And there it was. The message wasn't from her friend. Or her mom. Or anyone else with a socially acceptable reason to miss her. No, it was from someone named Adam. Adam. And judging by the string of previous texts, this wasn't their first chat. Or their second. Or their third. Scrolling through their conversation was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Each message was worse than the last. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. Your smile is my weakness. Can't wait to kiss you again. And my personal favorite, wish I could be with you instead of him." I slammed the phone down as if it had burned me, my mind racing. Instead of him? Oh, that's me. I'm him. Perfect. The sound of the shower stopped, and I panicked, my heart pounding like a drum solo at a rock concert. I grabbed my coffee cup and bolted to the living room, trying to look as casual as possible while my brain screamed, "What the hell is going on?" Sarah emerged a few minutes later, her hair wrapped in a towel and a smile on her face. "Morning," she chirped, leaning down to kiss me on the cheek. "Morning," I replied, keeping my tone even. Her phone buzzed again on the counter, and my eyes flicked toward it like a reflex. She didn't notice, or maybe she pretended not to, grabbing the device and typing out a quick reply before turning back to me. "Want to do something fun today?" she asked, her voice light. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. "Why not?" But as I sipped my coffee, one thing became painfully clear: my wife had a secret. And I was going to find out exactly what it was. If you've never played detective in your own marriage, let me tell you, it's a wild ride. Equal parts thrilling and soul-crushing. That morning, as Sarah flitted around the house humming and texting God knows who, I realized I had two choices: confront her outright or gather more evidence. Naturally, I chose the petty route. It started with the basics. First, I memorized Adam's number from her phone when she wasn't looking. I figured I'd need it later if I wanted to blow this whole thing wide open, or, send him an anonymous subscription to spam newsletters. That evening, while Sarah was in her yoga class, or yoga class as I now referred to it in my head, I got to work. First stop, her laptop. Now, I know what you're thinking, isn't this crossing a line? And to that, I'd say, sure, but she crossed it first. I'm just the guy following the breadcrumbs. She never logged out of her email, amateur mistake. It didn't take long to find exactly what I was looking for. A folder labeled work stuff. Spoiler, it wasn't work stuff. Inside, there were a dozen emails from Adam. They weren't as steamy as the texts, but they were damning in a whole different way. He was sweet-talking her like he was auditioning for the role of most charming homewrecker. "Hope your day is going well. Thinking of you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. You always brighten my week. Let me know if you want to meet at the usual place." The usual place. My jaw clenched so hard I thought I might break a molar. Next, I went to her browser history. If the emails were breadcrumbs, this was the entire loaf. A quick search revealed reservations for dinner at some trendy little bistro downtown, 2 people, last Tuesday. While I was at my late meeting. There was also a hotel booking from last month. My stomach churned as I stared at the name, the Palmetto Inn. I knew the place, cozy, discreet, expensive. Sarah wasn't just sneaking around, she was making a damn production of it. By the time she got home from yoga, or Adam's arms, who knows, I was simmering with quiet rage. She walked in wearing her usual post-workout glow, dropping her mat by the door with a cheery smile. "How was class?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Great," she said, grabbing a bottle of water. It was so relaxing. Relaxing. Right. Nothing like a good downward dog after an affair. I clenched my jaw and forced a smile. Glad to hear it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling while Sarah snored softly beside me. Every little detail swirled in my head, the texts, the emails, the reservations. At 3 a.m., I made a decision. If Sarah was going to play me like a fool, I'd beat her at her own game. The next day, while she was at work, I called the restaurant. The usual place. I made a reservation for 2 under her name. Then, using Adam's number, I sent a message pretending to be her. "Miss you too. Let's meet at the restaurant tomorrow night, 7 p.m. He responded within minutes, "Can't wait." The trap was set. When Sarah got home, I greeted her with a warm smile. "Hey," I said. "I've been thinking, we should have a date night tomorrow. Just the 2 of us. I'll pick the place." Her eyes widened slightly, and for a split second, I thought she looked nervous. But she recovered quickly, nodding with a smile. "That sounds great." I kissed her cheek, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside, I was already planning for the moment it all came crashing down. The next evening, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie and trying not to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here I was, preparing for the most dramatic dinner of my life, and Sarah, my beautiful, deceitful wife, had no idea she was walking straight into a trap. She came downstairs wearing her favorite red dress, the one I used to love seeing her in. Now, it felt like armor she donned to keep up appearances. "You look amazing," I said, keeping my tone light. "Thanks," she said, her smile tight. "You too." There was a flicker of something in her eyes, nerves, maybe. Or guilt. Either way, I filed it away for later. The restaurant was packed, its warm lights and soft music creating the perfect setting for an intimate evening. Sarah seemed relaxed, though she glanced at the door a little too often for my liking. The waiter approached, and I ordered wine for us, pretending this was a typical date night. "I'm glad we're doing this," Sarah said, sipping her water. "We've both been so busy lately." "Yeah," I said, nodding. "It's nice to take a moment to reconnect." She smiled, and for a brief second, I felt a pang of doubt. What if I was wrong? What if this was all a misunderstanding? Then the door opened, and Adam walked in. I recognized him immediately from the photo on his social media, tall, confident, and annoyingly handsome in that I ruin marriages for sport kind of way. He scanned the room, and when his eyes landed on Sarah, his face lit up. Sarah froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. "Something wrong?" I asked innocently. She forced a smile, setting the glass down. "No, nothing." Adam began walking toward us, his expression a mix of eagerness and confusion. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked, tilting my head. "No," she said quickly. "Why would I?" "Sarah," Adam said, stopping at our table. His voice was warm, familiar, like they'd shared 1,000 conversations. Her face went pale. "Adam," I said, standing and extending my hand. "Nice to finally meet you." He blinked, clearly caught off guard. Yeah. Same here." Have a seat, I said, gesturing to the empty chair across from Sarah. We were just talking about how important honesty is in a relationship. Adam hesitated, glancing at Sarah, who was visibly panicking. Michael, I don't think, she started, but I cut her off. No, I said, smiling tightly. Stay. It's not every day you get to have dinner with your wife and her friend. Adam sat down, looking like he'd walked into the wrong room at a party. The next 10 minutes were a masterclass in awkward silence. Sarah kept darting nervous glances between Adam and me, her hands twisting in her lap. Adam, for his part, seemed torn between running for the door and trying to charm his way out of this mess. Finally, I broke the silence. So, I said, leaning back in my chair. How long have you two been close? Adam's eyes widened, and Sarah's fork clattered against her plate. Michael, this isn't the time, she said, her voice trembling. Oh, I think it's the perfect time, I said, my voice calm but icy. Unless, of course, you'd rather I ask Adam directly. Adam cleared his throat, his confidence crumbling. Look, man, I didn't mean to. To what? I interrupted. To get involved with a married woman? To lie? To send texts saying you miss her smile while I'm sitting at home like an idiot? Sarah's face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. Michael, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean for what to happen, Sarah? I snapped. The texts? The dinners? The hotel reservations? Which part, exactly, was the accident? She stared at me, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean to hurt you. Funny thing about betrayal, I said bitterly. It tends to hurt no matter what your intentions are. Adam shifted uncomfortably, clearly regretting every life choice that had led him to this moment. Maybe I should go. No, I said sharply. Stay. You wanted to be part of her life, right? Welcome to it. Sarah buried her face in her hands, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered the texts, the lies, the sheer audacity of it all, and the pity evaporated. I stood, tossing a few bills on the table. This dinner is over, I said, my voice cold. You two enjoy the rest of your night. I'm done. I turned and walked away, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, a wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined for my marriage, but at least now, I had the truth. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. I wish I could say I stormed out of that restaurant feeling triumphant, like a hero in one of those cheesy rom-coms where the scorned lover finally takes a stand. But the truth? I felt like garbage. The cold air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside. My tie felt suffocating, so I yanked it off and stuffed it into my pocket. Behind me, the laughter and clinking glasses from the restaurant carried on, oblivious to the emotional car crash I'd just walked away from. I wasn't sure where to go. Home didn't feel like an option, not when the idea of sitting in the same space as Sarah made my skin crawl. So, I did what any self-respecting man does after discovering his wife's infidelity. I found the nearest bar. The bartender was a man of few words, which suited me just fine. I nursed a whiskey on the rocks, staring at the glass like it held the answers to all my problems. Spoiler alert, it didn't. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I knew without looking that it was Sarah. Sure enough, when I finally checked, there were 3 missed calls and a slew of texts. Michael, please come home. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. But what could I say? Sure, let's chat about how you and Adam ruined my life. Instead, I set the phone down and ordered another drink. By the time I stumbled out of the bar, the world had taken on that slightly fuzzy quality that comes with too much alcohol and too little clarity. I found a cab and gave the driver my address, bracing myself for whatever awaited me at home. When I got there, Sarah was waiting. She was sitting on the couch, still wearing the red dress from dinner. Her makeup was smudged, and her eyes were red, but she straightened when I walked in, like she'd been rehearsing what to say. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" I shut the door behind me, leaning against it for a moment before answering. "Talk about what, Sarah?" "How you've been sneaking around with Adam. Or how you lied to my face for God knows how long." She flinched, tears spilling over. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice cracking. "Then what was it like?" I snapped. "Help me understand, Sarah. Was it thrilling? Did you feel alive sneaking around while I was working late to keep us afloat?" "It wasn't about that," she said, shaking her head. "I never meant for this to happen. It just did." "Wow," I said, laughing bitterly. "That's a hell of an explanation. It just did. Guess I'll use that one if I ever decide to throw my vows in the trash too." She stood, wiping her face. "I was lonely, Michael. You were always working, always distracted. And Adam, he made me feel seen. Like I mattered." I stared at her, my chest tightening. "You think I don't see you? That you don't matter to me? I've spent the last 5 years trying to build a life for us, Sarah. Everything I've done has been for you, for us." "I know," she said softly. "But somewhere along the way, we stopped being us. And I didn't know how to fix it." Her words hung in the air, heavy and painful. For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been too focused on work, too blind to see the cracks in our marriage. But then I remembered the texts, the hotel reservations, the way she'd looked at Adam when he walked into that restaurant. "No," I said finally, shaking my head. "You don't get to blame this on me. If you were unhappy, you could have said something. You could have talked to me. Instead, you chose him." She sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry, Michael. I really am. I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But the damage was done. I can't do this, Sarah," I said, my voice breaking. "I can't look at you and not see him. I can't pretend this didn't happen. Please," she whispered, stepping closer. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy, start over." I held up a hand, stopping her. "It's too late. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice desperate. "Anywhere but here," I said, not looking back. As I walked out into the night, the cold air hit me like a slap, but this time, it felt like a wake-up call. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: Sarah and I were done. And for the first time that night, I felt a strange, bittersweet sense of relief. The first thing I did the next morning was call a lawyer. If Sarah thought I was going to linger in the limbo of maybe we can fix this, she didn't know me as well as she thought. Sitting in that office, surrounded by polished wood and the faint scent of leather, I laid it all out for the attorney. The texts. The emails. The dinner where Adam waltzed in like the star of his own soap opera. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Karen, ironic, I know, nodded calmly as I spoke. "You have every right to pursue a clean divorce," she said, her pen scribbling notes at lightning speed. "And based on what you've told me, I don't think she'll put up much of a fight." Good. Because I wasn't in the mood for one. I avoided the house as much as possible over the next week. Sarah tried calling, texting, even leaving notes on my car windshield. I ignored them all. When I finally went back, it was to pack my things. She was waiting for me in the kitchen, looking exhausted but hopeful, like she thought this was her chance to change my mind. "Michael," she said softly as I walked in. "Can we talk?" "No," I said flatly, heading for the bedroom. She followed me, her voice growing more frantic. "Please, just listen. I know I screwed up, but we can work through this. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes." I stopped, turning to face her. "You already did enough, Sarah. You didn't just screw up, you betrayed me. You lied to me, to my face, for who knows how long. There's no coming back from that. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Packing was awkward. I threw clothes into a suitcase while she stood in the doorway, watching silently. When I grabbed the framed photo from our anniversary trip to the mountains, she finally broke the silence. "Are you really going to leave me?" she whispered. I looked at her, holding the photo in my hands. "You left me first, Sarah. You just didn't bother to tell me." I set the frame back on the dresser, leaving it behind with everything else we'd built together. The final blow came a few days later. I'd sent her the divorce papers through Karen, expecting at least some resistance. But to my surprise, she signed them without a fight. She included a short note, scrawled in messy handwriting. "I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better." For once, we agreed on something. That weekend, I moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, just a couch, a bed, and a fridge full of takeout, but it was mine. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. The unexpected call. I just started to feel normal when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Michael," a familiar voice said. "Adam." My grip on the phone tightened. "What the hell do you want?" I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice awkward and uncertain. "I didn't mean for things to get so out of hand." I laughed bitterly. "Out of hand? You had an affair with my wife, Adam. That's more than out of hand." "I know," he said quickly. "And I regret it. She ended things, you know. Said she couldn't keep lying to herself." I rolled my eyes. "Great. Congratulations. Do you want a medal?" There was a long pause on the line. Then, quietly, he said, "No. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For everything." Before I could respond, he hung up. The clean slate. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the wounds began to heal. I focused on work, picked up new hobbies, and started going out with friends again. One night, I sat in a coffee shop, sketching ideas for a side project I'd been putting off for years. As I sipped my coffee, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Sarah, not at Adam, not even at myself. I'd survived. And maybe, just maybe, I'd come out stronger on the other side. In the end, the clean break was messy, painful, and far from perfect. But it was what I needed. Because sometimes, the only way to move forward is to leave the past behind entirely. Subscribe to never miss a new story and discover even more captivating tales.